Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Your Football Opinion. I am your host, Theo, and today we are done with the NFC record predictions and we are getting into the AFC. Traditionally, this is something I've done on TikTok, but I figure that it lends itself a little bit better to my schedule to get them all done in my new podcast here. If you missed the last two episodes when I ran through the NFC, I'll give you a little quick preview of how I had the teams finishing. In the NFC North, I had Green Bay first, Detroit second, Chicago third, Minnesota fourth. In the NFC East, I had Dallas first, Philadelphia second, the New York Giants third, Washington fourth. In the South, I had the Saints winning that division, then Atlanta, Tampa Bay third, Carolina fourth. And in the NFC West, San Francisco still on top, Seattle second, Arizona third, and then the LA Rams fourth. So if you want exact record predictions and rationale for all of those picks, be sure to check out the last two episodes if you haven't already. But today we're getting into some of the AFC rankings. Fitting as we are a week away officially from the season opener, Kansas City at Baltimore. The AFC kind of reigns supreme, I would say, in the league right now, considering that's where the Chiefs are at. And I would also say the Ravens were probably the second best team in football overall last year. And a lot of the top squads are in this conference right now. So it's kind of the main character conference of the league right now. And I don't know if that'll lend itself to a more entertaining record predictions episode, but we'll find out. Today, on the docket, we have half of the conference. I put them into a random number generator to get the order. We're going Baltimore first, then the Las Vegas Raiders, the Tennessee Titans, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Bengals, the Broncos, the Colts, and the Buffalo Bills. So, with that being said, let's get into my record prediction for the Baltimore Ravens. And this is a team I don't have to talk so long about because they were my prediction to win the conference in the very first episode that we did of this show. They've got the pairing of an elite defense with an elite quarterback. Lamar Jackson has the same regular season winning percentage, or a very similar one. I don't know if to the decimal place it's the same, but they all win about 3/4 of their game. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, these guys, you can almost guarantee, will contend for 1 seeds, will contend for divisions, will contend for Super Bowls. I don't think it's going to be any different with the Ravens this year. I don't think they'll be quite the same level as they were last year, though, when they won 13 games against one of the toughest schedules in football. I think the loss of some key offensive line contributors and some defensive talent, including their coordinator, Mike Macdonald, will mean they have a bit of a tougher time this regular season. But they are still extremely formidable, and I think the way the weapons are constructed, that's the best unit that Lamar Jackson has ever played with. I am extremely excited for Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson to share the backfield. It's a bit of a pick-your-poison situation. We know the gravity that Lamar Jackson has on these read option plays. There's an entire side of the defensive line that kind of has to hesitate when that happens, and there's a reason that the Ravens have had a top 10 rushing offense every year since Lamar Jackson became the starter in 2019. Adding Henry to that fold is going to make them even more dangerous because I don't think Derrick Henry is washed at all. Last season, the Tennessee Titans were one of the worst offensive lines in the entire league, but Derrick Henry still brought the rushing offense to fine levels. They were bottom 3 in yards before contact per carry. They were top 5 in yards after contact per carry. So what is Derrick Henry going to do when there's actually some creases to run through this season? I think it's going to be great. And then I like Keaton Mitchell as well when he gets healthy off of his ACL. Hopefully he's healthy off of his ACL. I guess that's no guarantee. But if that can be kind of a thunder and lightning type pairing, man, I think this is going to be a good run offense. And Lamar Jackson, even if Keaton Mitchell isn't healthy, makes this a good thunder and lightning pairing. And then they're getting Mark Andrews back after he missed the back half of last season. Isaiah Likely behind him filled in extremely nicely. I think they'll be a very heavy 12 personnel team with both of those guys on the field at the same time. I think that can work. With Zay Flowers as their primary receiving threat, he did a great job last season, except for his fumble at the 1-yard line. Nelson Aguilar, Rashad Bateman, Devontae Walker, Tylan Wallace. I'm a bit concerned about the receiver depth here if anything were to happen to Zay Flowers. But the way it looks right now, with the rushing threat that they provide, I think it's going to be enough for the offense not to fall apart. The line, that's definitely a huge question mark. Voorhees was a 7th-round pick. Now, granted, he probably is a bit more talented than that, but tore his ACL in, I think, at the Combine or at his pro day. So that killed his draft stock. The Ravens got him. They're good enough that they can sit a guy like that for a year. They're a very good draft and develop team, which makes me feel a little bit better. But still, going in it with a 7th-rounder like Voorhees, Daniel Falele, who I just don't think is going to hang at right guard, honestly. Patrick McCary and Roger Rosengarten at right tackle. Like, that's going to be a work in progress. Once we get to the playoffs, that will definitely become of paramount concern. I think if Lamar Jackson needs to get rid of the ball faster, he can. He's got great pocket presence to help the line out. Derrick Henry can help the line out. Again, I think they can survive the regular season. We'll see if it becomes more of an issue in big games or in a playoff stretch. But I think their offense looks pretty damn good. I do. The weapons, Lamar, the history of their offensive line play, I don't see why this wouldn't be. Well, I can't see why it wouldn't be a top 10 offense, but I don't think it'll happen. And then the defense continues to be great. This is the best secondary in the league, in my opinion. Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams, plus Eddie Jackson, makes a pretty formidable safety trio. I thought that Eddie Jackson was a decent pickup. Had a bit of a bounce-back season and played pretty well this preseason. I don't know how great he'll be, but I think he can be at least solid. I am a big Justin Madubuike fan. I don't think that his production is going anywhere, even with the loss of McDonald. I like Travis Jones. I always kind of have. I wonder if he could potentially have a bit of a breakout finally, now that they've lost some other pieces. They drafted Ajabo a while ago, who was projected to be a first-round pick, but again, suffered a late injury and fell in the draft. Maybe that can pay dividends for them this year. They need more help off the edge, certainly. Odafe Owe has not fully blossomed. I know that it's been positive for him after he finished his senior season at Penn State with 0 sacks. Like, to be at the pressure rate he is at now and the production he is at now is good, but there still needs to be another gear there. But I think Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Nate Wiggins, the rookie, Marlon Humphrey. There is Madubuike, obviously. Michael Pierce, the nose tackle, stuffing the run. There's enough high-end talent here that they can kind of cover for the weaker positions and be a top 5 defense again and a top 10 offense. Be a pretty dominant team all the way around with good special teams as well. Justin Tucker leading the way there. I see them going 12-5 and winning this division again. Next up, we have got the Las Vegas Raiders. Kind of been funny to watch this team from a ASU student's perspective. I attended the university for a while, and Antonio Pierce was our athletic director. He recruited a bunch of great talent. Jaden Daniels was a freshman when I was a freshman. We had Ayuk. We had Frank Darby, who was good. Benjamin. Jack Jones on the defensive side of the ball was fantastic. It was fun football for a while there with ASU, and then we got hit with a ton of recruiting violations. Antonio Pierce kind of slinked away from the program, and then all of a sudden he just pops up in Las Vegas. I didn't even know he was there, and it's like, oh, there's the guy that got us nailed with a ton of sanctions, and I don't know if he ran the program into the ground. I guess I don't know how all the details fleshed out there, but I actually am grateful that, he may have cheated to get some of these recruits, but I got to watch some fun football for a while there as an ASU fan. So I'm rooting for the success of Pierce and Jones reuniting at the NFL level. However, I'm just not sure if it'll happen. Like I said in the previous episode, I'm not convinced they made the correct decision regarding their quarterback competition. Gardner Minshew hit some big plays, definitely looked impressive at times during the preseason. He avoided too many huge negatives like Aiden O'Connell did when he threw the pick six, but his completion percentage was sub 50% this preseason during the quarterback battle, and he won. Uh-oh, that's not good. Zamir White seems to me like not someone who's going to be crazy efficient between the 20s. Like, once you get into the red zone, I appreciate how he can get north and south and is definitely not afraid to get north and south, not going to make unnecessary movement, but he was pretty inefficient last year. I don't think they'll be able to rely on the ground game much. And so where does that leave you? Devontae Adams last season had a massive target share. Did not really live up to that target share. His percentage of production returned on how much he was targeted was not great because the offensive infrastructure was so bad. I don't know why that wouldn't happen again. I don't think Gardner Minshew is actually any kind of upgrade over what you were getting from O'Connell last season, most likely. I think that we could very well see O'Connell again and have it be literally the exact same quarterback situation. I like the skill position group as a whole: Adams, Myers, Tucker, Bowers, and Mayer, which I'm excited to see. Those guys in 12 personnel, they can make plays. I liked Mayer a lot as a prospect, as kind of more of your possession tight end, like decent route runner, really reliable hands, and in contested catch situations, pretty good blocker. Seemed like someone who could just go out there and be a solid tight end for you day one, kind of in like that Jason Witten mold. And then Bowers, I don't even know who to comp him to. He's like a do-it-all guy that you hear about from the 1940s. Even his name, Brock Bowers, kind of feels like that. Fullback, wide receiver, tight end, like whatever you need him to do, like running back and toss it out to him. He's that good with the ball in his hands. Like he just is someone that you can never shut down because you never know where he's going to be. So I love that pickup. I thought he was one of the best players in the draft. I loved that the Raiders didn't reach for a quarterback and just took the guy who could potentially be like, I don't know if Hall of Fame upside is too much to put on a rookie, but he's one of those guys. Like, he's one of those tight end prospects where it's like the sky is the absolute limit. And I do think he could be one of the best of the era. So to have him in there now, it is very intriguing, but just that the fact that the quarterback situation will cap how good this passing offense can be, plus the fact that there's no rushing upside really in the quarterback room or really in the running back room either, makes me think that this talented group of pass catchers will kind of be for naught. And then on defense, I like them. I like them on defense more than offense. Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, Malcolm Kuntz can all get after it. I think if you can rush four and get pressure, you're in good shape, and they're definitely going to be doing that. Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, is not a big blitz-heavy guy, and he's not going to need to be with this lineup rushing the passer. They've got some guys on the back end that I like. Jack Jones, aforementioned, my favorite ASU player that I watched during my time there, and I watched some good ones. I watched some very good ones. Ayuk and Daniels being the main characters. But I think that Jack Jones at the school was better than them. Like, the plays he made were unbelievable. How fast he was able to react to everything. How creative he was at the cornerback position. Like, he would get picks and like lateral it while getting tackled. Like, just things like that. Just a playmaker, right? And someone at like 5'9" or 5'10" or whatever he is, who could guard the biggest, strongest, fastest guy on the other team. So he was just an absolute joy to watch. And then he got into the league and has really been locked down here too. Like, when he was with the Patriots, he was a really good rookie corner. Then he brought a gun to the airport and got let go of, right? And the reason we got him at all at ASU is because he robbed a store at USC and then got let go, so we were able to pick him up. And we'll see if he plays the whole season here in Vegas. If he does, I like Jones and Nate Hobbs a lot, But like Jones this morning posted some picture on his Twitter of a drug test guy texting him, telling him that he needed to come in. And Jones posted it like trying to say that there wasn't enough time to prepare for the drug test. It's like, what do you need to prepare for, man? It's just, he's a bit of a loose cannon, I feel like. But if he's on the field, the defense looks okay. It looks good. But that other cornerback spot, Jacorian Bennett, Anthony Richardson, it's tough for me to say that the secondary is going to hold up as much as it needs to carry this offense. Last year, they were 18th in pressure rate, 11th in sack rate, despite having Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz last year. They stayed out of the top 10. I think the addition of Christian Wilkins will help a lot. I think it'll get them into the top 10 in both of those numbers, but I don't quite see this defense being quite like the Browns defense with their front four, even though Garrett and Crosby are comparable and maybe the other pieces are comparable as well, like Wilkins to Zadarius Smith or something like that. Like the front four is maybe similar to what we see from the Steelers and the Browns and some of the top defenses year in and year out, but from top to bottom, is this defense on that level in the secondary with the depth at the linebacker position? I know that Spillane and Diablo had career years last year, but is that going to continue? I don't know. I look at this team and I think that they could be scrappy, kind of like they were last year under Antonio Pierce, but I'm not going to put the expectations too high. In the past, history has shown that keeping the interim is not a good move. Historically, they regress. And I'm going to bet on that kind of again here with Las Vegas. I think that they'll go. I went through their schedule, man. I didn't see many wins. My number's really low. So I'm going to go through it one more time and make sure. Okay. Chargers, I think they'll take an L. Ravens, L. Panthers, W. Browns, L. Broncos, L. Steelers, L. Rams, L. Chiefs, L. Bengals, L. Dolphins, L. Broncos, W. I think they can get one against them. Chiefs, probably an L. Buccaneers, maybe a W against them, L against the Falcons, L against the Jaguars, L against the Saints, L against or maybe a W against the Chargers. What does that put them at? I wrote down 4 wins. I can maybe that's too low, but I'm just gonna ride with that. We'll say 4-13. I'm sorry. Gardner Minshew is just not leading them to much, and I think that the promise that they showed under Pierce just has no huge guarantee of being built off of or even staying steady. And history tells us this. So maybe that's too harsh. I feel a little bad, but hey, it's a tough schedule. Tennessee, next up. Not totally convinced on this team either, staying out of the basement. I know that they have their fans, but the vision for them being out of the basement of their division, I think it's a bit tough for me to believe. On the defensive side of the ball, I actually like them. It's the offense that I'm concerned about. So they brought in Brian Callahan. They kept Will Levis. They spent a ton of money on Tyler Boyd and Calvin Ridley, and they moved for D-Hop last year. What am I supposed to think of this? It seems like their plan, now that Derrick Henry is gone, is to go more shotgun, pass heavy. That's what the Bengals have been the past few years under Callahan. Burrow hardly gets under center. This preseason, Tennessee was 7th in shotgun snaps after ranking 23rd in shotgun snaps the last preseason. They ended up 27th in gun snaps in the regular season last year. So the fact that there's already been this big increase, and I think it's obvious what direction they want to go in. I don't really think that they have the tools to succeed if they go that direction. I mean, Will Levis has some very nice qualities, absolute cannon of an arm. He is mobile, right? He can make people miss and pick up yards on a scramble, which we haven't always seen in Tennessee. He has the ability to hang in a tight pocket, definitely keep his eyes downfield and fire a laser. I've seen him hit some A+ level throws during his time as an NFL starter. However, I also think that his internal clock can run a bit slow going back to college. Like some reps he'll stay in there and fire it beautifully when things are condensed. That's exactly what you want to see. But sometimes he seems a little bit unaware of the pressure closing in. And that was even more of a problem at Kentucky than I think it was last year. Last year, the offensive line was just so bad that it was kind of tough to tell, I'd say, how good his pocket presence was, because there weren't many people doing anything behind what they were trotting out there last year. Levis is intriguing. I bet you're hoping, if you're a Titans fan, for something a little bit like Jordan Love's progression. Jordan Love started this season a little bit slow his first year as a starter after being a late first-round pick, Levis an early second. But as the season went on, he started to figure things out. His pocket presence got a lot better. The big plays started hitting downfield. I think you're hoping for kind of a similar career path if you're them. They weren't drafted too far apart. I don't think they were regarded very differently as prospects, that's for sure. In fact, I think Levis may have been regarded as the better quarterback prospect compared to Jordan Love coming out, at least in the media he was. So you're probably hoping for some, like, I don't know if he'll reach those kinds of heights. Like Jordan Love had an amazing playoff performance, like led the Packers to the second round, almost won that game as well. Like, I don't think Levis has to do something like that, but I think that's kind of the blueprint you're going after. I just don't see it. I don't like the receiving room at all. Boyd, Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, all of them had very similar years last year. They had huge target shares. I mean, they were leaned on heavily, all three of these guys, even Boyd, because T. Higgins was hurt and Jamar Chase was kind of banged up as well. Like Boyd had a pretty large share in the Bengals offense, and all three of them underwhelmed. Like that's the common theme here. Everybody hoped that they were going to be a guy to help lead them, and they fell short. They were inefficient. And so now all three of them are together, and I think that this is going to be one of those receiving rooms where we just say, well, they can't really get a lot of separation. Now, maybe Ridley can still get there. Like, separation isn't his main problem, I'd say, as it is, like, catching through contact, catching it all. So maybe he can create enough separation. But the other two, and Ridley's getting up there in age, like, I think he's in his 30s now. If you're asking them to run routes downfield, like way downfield, because we know that Levis likes to bomb it as far as he can. He is an outlier in terms of his average depth of target. If you're asking to drop back with Will Levis and throw it to these three 30-plus-year-old receivers all year, that has disaster potential in my eyes. That has disaster potential. And the line, it's better. Brian Callahan's father, Bill Callahan, is a legendary offensive line coach, but he's not a miracle worker. He's not instantly turned around every single situation that he's been in. I think eventually they've all gotten better, and I think this year will be slightly better than last year, but that right side, still kind of a mess. So I think Levis is going to be under pressure. I don't think he's going to handle it great. I don't think the receivers are going to be winning as consistently as they need to be winning, and I don't know. Derrick Henry ain't around anymore for that reliable 4 yards every time. So I really don't think that this offense is going to perform at the level that would constitute them being a dark horse for the wild card or a dark horse to finish second or even third in this division. I just don't like it. I like Cushenberry, that addition. Like, I liked Latham, but I did think he was a bit of a reach at 7. Don't think it's devoid of talent, but I just see this this is one of those teams where in the Brian Callahan era, like there's a lot of turnover in the league. I'm trying to picture 4 or 5 years down the line here, maybe even less than that, 2-3 years. Like, how many of these guys are still going to be around? I just don't think this is a playoff team that is going to be a building block. I think it's Latham is a building block, Skoronski, Cushenberry. I guess Ridley is because they just paid him so much, but ideally, this kind of seems like a transitionary team until we get into I don't know. I think you guys know what I mean. The defense, though, if they are going to be good, it's because I think the defense balls out. I like their secondary. They bought an entire secondary this offseason. L'Jarius Sneed came over from Kansas City. He's a great corner. Chidobe Awuzie has always been banged up, but when he's healthy, he has been locked down for Cincinnati. I think that Roger McCreary in the slot is an underrated player as well. They brought in Quandre Diggs, I think a decent safety. They've got Amani Hooker as well. I see no reason why that can't be pretty good. Like, there's not a lot of secondaries out there that all three corner spots I feel as good about as I do with the Tennessee unit. And then they've got a pass rush as well. Jeffrey Simmons is a game wrecker. You've got Arden Key, who's this pass rush specialist. Harold Landry can get sacks. I liked their Ernest Jones trade that they just made. I thought he was a very good middle linebacker for LA. I'm sorry, excuse me. And losing him just made me more confident that they're going to struggle next year. If the defensive coordination is good, if they're well coached, they've got the talent to be, I think, a top 10 defense in a way that I just don't see the offense coming together. It's a weird mix of bodies, and they basically, like, none of these guys except for Simmons have been like drafted and developed by the team. I guess Harold Landry has. But I think buying a defense can kind of work. I do. If I don't, it's a first-year defensive coordinator, so I'll reserve my judgment on exactly how good he is. But if the coaching is good, I think this defense has a high ceiling, and I think they will be good all year. So bad offense, good defense. You know, I'll hesitate on saying great. Lands them at what? I'll say 5-12 for the Titans. Next up, we have the always controversial Chargers. Jim Harbaugh taking over for Brandon Staley. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. This team has been sorely missing a toughness to it, an ability to, once they gain a lead, run out the clock on the ground. Austin Eckler never got more than 20 carries in a game in his career in LA. And he was their starter for how long? A long time, right? Think about that. They just, someone who is always on a heavy pitch count. And think about the Jaguars game, right? They were up 28-0, right? And they just could not salt the game away on the ground at all. I think Eckler had like -2 total yards in the second half or something crazy like that. I think that automatically kind of got fixed this offseason. Bringing in Harbaugh, bringing in Joe Alt, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Vidal. Sorry, there's some weird shit popping up on my computer. Vidal, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Vidal. Like, they will be more balanced than ever before. Problem is, balanced isn't bringing you past the Chiefs in the division. You know what I mean? Like, Justin Herbert, I trust in him to do his thing, like ball out. Do I trust Josh Palmer, Lad McConkey, and Quentin Johnston to catch it? Not necessarily. How many times have we seen Herbert sold by drops? It's a lot. The Packers game should have been an easy win for them last season. Drops from Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, everybody. I mean, it cost the whole game. I remember watching the Patriots game. That game ended like 7-3. The Chargers won. They only scored 7 points. You're watching it expecting maybe Herbert struggles or, you know, does something wrong, has some bad moments. Like, not really. There's just there's a ton of drops on third downs and receivers not making a play. It sounds like I'm always making excuses. And sometimes I even think to myself, like, I probably should chill. There's got to be something wrong. And then you go back and look at the film and it really is just like brutal breaks and brutal bad luck. And I think with this receiving core, that's probably not going anywhere. So even though I think Herbert will play well enough to keep the offense average and the balance will be enough to keep the offense average, this is not the supporting cast even an elite quarterback needs to be, you know, a double-digit, a division winner, you know, winning team. The defense as well, also a problem. The corner situation, Christian Fulton is a starter. All right, that's a terrible situation to be in. Derwin James didn't have his best season last year. The pass rush, like everything, needs to prove itself. Like maybe some of it was on Staley and his play calls, but my bigger problem than Staley's play calls was the way he was developing talent. Like who steps up? What defensive tackle is there that's going to be a problem? Is Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack going to be, the only two people that you can rely on this defense to like make a positive impact? And is Joey Bosa going to be healthy? I think just because Staley is gone and Minter is in, it wasn't just a coaching problem. It was a talent problem that they still have. So I think the upside of the passing offense is limited. And also of the rushing offense doesn't have unlimited upside either, with Gus Edwards as the projected starter. He's not the world's most electric back. A defense that I'm just not sold on. It's not going to be a great team. I think it's going to be an average team. I do think that there's going to be some things that look better than they have in the past, but I don't think that this team is going to stop hovering around 500. I've got them at 9-8. And that's even being a little bit high on them, I'd say. But I do think that Herbert and maybe McConkey can ball out a little bit. I think those two with a balanced running game is good enough that they can, they've hovered around 900 for 500 before with pretty bad teams. So I got that happening again. So 9-8, missed the playoffs, in the hunt. It's fine, whatever. Next up, we got Pittsburgh. Elephant in the room. Tomlin never has a losing season. It doesn't happen until it does, though. And I'm a bit concerned about their offensive situation after this preseason. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields operating Arthur Smith's offense with George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin holding down the receiver room. Sounds pretty awful to me. The offensive line currently has Broderick Jones slated to start at right tackle and Dan Moore starting at left tackle. One of the worst tackle duos in the league, I'd say, at the moment. Broderick Jones has really struggled in pass protection his entire career. Don't really see that getting much better after his preseason performance. Like the interior, decent amount, but there's only so far an interior of an offensive line can bring you. I don't know how this offense is any good. I thought early in the season or early in the offseason, okay, they've got a good offensive line. They drafted Fautanu. They got Najee and Jalen Warren. Arthur Smith can run the ball. They'll have that. That's how they've been winning in the past. It's an even better kind of version of that. Now, it's okay, they can run with Najee Harris. He hasn't always been the most efficient guy. With Arthur Smith, do I trust the workload split between him and the clearly more talented Jalen Warren to be fair, especially now that Jalen Warren has suffered a hamstring injury? No, I think they'll probably lean on too much on the power back and not the dynamic back if Arthur Smith tells us anything. And also, Arthur Smith's run game was not very well designed last year. It really disappointed me. This offensive line has guys who would be great. Pulling, getting out in space, with momentum, just clearing out a linebacker. That's not really what Arthur Smith likes to do at all. He's a heavy zone runner. Not sure if that's a good scheme fit for the bodies they have up front. I think this offense is going to be really lame from the start. It's going to be really lame from the start. Maybe not, they made the playoffs with Matt Canada. It could always happen. But in a good AFC, it's tough to bet on, happening again and again and again. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm a lot more excited, though. I will say that. TJ Watt, Keanu Benton, Larry Ogunjobi, Alex Highsmith, Cameron Hayward. That is a great defensive line. Behind them, they've got Patrick Queen and Landon Roberts. Queen, I think, is a bit overrated, I'd say. He's good going downhill, especially rushing the pass. He had a ton of sacks last year. But part of the reason he was good last season, I think, is because he got Roquan Smith alongside of him, and he had Mike McDonald scheming up great blitzes for him. And he was just kind of allowed to, be physical, cause havoc. He's a weakness in coverage still, I'd say. And if you're a weakness in coverage, you can't be rated as the ESPN poll had him rated as a top 3 linebacker or something like that, at least top 5. He was a steal in free agency, right? He didn't get paid too much, so it's not like a horrible deal for the Steelers. But there's a reason that he didn't get paid huge money after having like a Pro Bowl caliber season last year on paper. But I do like Roberts a lot. I think that he is actually extremely underrated. So it kind of balances out to like a good linebacker duo, I think. We'll see in coverage though. But they'll be able to rush the passer. Herbig is well off the bench. Definitely not a negative. Like he's got some serious juice, some serious speed. I enjoy him. In the secondary, you've got two guys who look like stars, Minkah Fitzpatrick and Joey Porter Jr. There are a few weak spots, certainly. I see Beanie Bishop Jr. in that starting nickel spot and Dante Jackson in the left corner spot. That's not great. I'd probably rather see Corey Trice Jr. making an appearance at some point this season. I know these depth charts aren't always totally accurate, but they will have corners that you can definitely pick on. At best, this team is what it's always been, a wild card first round exit. That's at best. If you ran the season a million times, like what would the average finish be and what would I bet on? Probably Pittsburgh 6-11. I think the buck might end here with this offense. But they've always proved that wrong before. I know people have been saying that for a long time. But Kenny Pickett was pretty horrible. Is Russell Wilson worse than that? Like, probably not. But I also don't think 9 wins is guaranteed, even with slightly better quarterback play. Like, just because it's happened 17 times in a row doesn't mean it's guaranteed to happen this time. It doesn't sound great leaving my mouth, but I think it's true. Hopefully we just get some sick Pickens moments this year. I love when he's on, he's got to be the most fun to watch. His almost catch this preseason, I think they should have gave it to him. I think it was the second game, or was it the first, on the sideline from Russ, where he like one-handed it, like barely didn't get that second toe down. Like that catch was so crazy. So I'm down to see 200 Pickens targets this year and what he can do with that. But I don't know how good of targets they'll be. Next up, we got another NFC North team, the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a team I cannot figure out at all. Absolutely cannot figure this team out. I want to say they'll be really good again. Like, last year was a total misfire. T. Higgins, like starting the year, like 0 catches on 8 targets, like total dud game. Then is hurt the rest of the year, basically, or not healthy until the end when Burrow's not around. Burrow starts with a knee injury, gets healthy, they start winning some games, and then messes up his wrist, right, and is out for the whole year. There's nothing gelled at any point. So I'm willing to give the whole offense kind of a pass because I feel like Burrow and Chase and Higgins have proven themselves. That they should get the benefit of the doubt. Like, hey, this is an elite trio that's capable of, like, by themselves taking you to 10 wins or something like that when you get a passing offense this high octane. But it's just been a while since we've seen it. I'm also a little bit, I don't know if concerned is the right word. I'm interested in kind of the new offensive philosophy. With the new offensive philosophy they seem to be heading in. Now that Brian Callahan is gone, Zach Taylor, he was a McVay guy way back in the day. This offense could not be farther from what McVay's offense looks like, but because they didn't have a ton of results last year and now Callahan is gone, it seems like they're trying to get more to some of that under center wide zone stuff more than they have been in the past. Is that a good move? Like, I think I might want to just stay in shotgun and pass it all the time with Joe Burrow, like if it ain't broke. And I don't think last year was any kind of sign that it's broken. So this, like, offensive switch up, like, maybe it'll be a good thing for the offense. Like, it would be good. It would be nice to be more balanced and maybe provide the offensive line some help instead of dropping back 40 times a game or something like that, right? So I could see it being a good move, but I could also see them being some time to adjust if you're Burrow, because he's never really played this way before or that way before. So maybe there's some growing pains in the new offense. And then the defense, like, let's count the good players here. To be a real Super Bowl contender, I mean, it's hard to be a Super Bowl contender with no Hall of Famers on the defensive side of the ball, I'd say. You know what I mean? Like Kansas City has Chris Jones. San Francisco has a couple of them. The Patriots, when they were a dynasty, always had plenty of insane defensive players. Like, if the Bengals are real deal contenders, is the defense to that level? They've got Trey Hendrickson in the front four. He can get after the passer, certainly. But this defensive tackle situation, BJ Hill, Sheldon Rankins, like, I feel like running it right up the gut on this team is going to work tremendously this season. And then Sam Hubbard, he's not really much of a pass rusher. Miles Murphy just got put on IR. In the secondary, again, I like Cam Taylor-Britt. I think he has a lot of potential. DJ Turner, a lot of potential. Dax Hill, former first-round pick, but it's getting to the point where with him, it's like, okay, former first-round pick, what have you actually done? Last year, the safety situation was a mess. This year, they brought in Geno Stone. I can trust it. I guess that move I thought was a bit underrated. But overall, the sum of the parts here doesn't look insane. But in the past, Lou Anarumo has done more with less and has proven himself to be a fantastic defensive coordinator, getting head coaching looks. But last year, that magic seemed to kind of be gone. Now, maybe that's because the safety situation was a disaster, losing Jesse Bates, some of the disguises that he had been able to do in the past, maybe not all available to him. Maybe with Geno Stone, who had a bunch of picks last year, and battle with another year in the system, it starts to get a little bit better. They have a guy who can get 15, 16 sacks in Trey Hendrickson. Their linebacker duo is pretty good with Wilson and Pratt. Like, I think Cam Taylor-Britt has, like I said before, I'm excited about him. I think he has real potential to lock down opposing wide receiver ones. So I could see the defense being okay, but I also am not sure. Like, maybe the run defense will just be their downfall. Like, this defense, after losing Reader, teams will just be able to run it right down their throat like last year when he was hurt. Could see that being true as well. This was a bottom tier defense last season. So it's kind of tough to project this year, because they've been up and they've been down. There's a lot up in the air with them, but I think at the end of the day, I'm putting my faith in Joe Burrow, and Ja'Marr Chase eventually reporting. I know the Bengals are kind of broke, but if Ja'Marr Chase holds out for more than like one game, they are levels of broke that I did not even know was possible. So I have to think eventually a deal will get done there. I'm tentative about it, but I'll say 11-5 for them. 10-7. I'm not that confident. Moving on to the Denver Broncos. Now, Bo Nix fever is insane around here. I live in Denver, and if you turn on sports radio, the local news, you would think that the Broncos just had won the Super Bowl, because Bo Nix scored on almost every preseason drive that he made an appearance on, which I get being excited, right? It's hard to do much better than that. You see the rookie quarterback get the ball. You see the offense march down the field, put points on the board. They did it consistently through 2 games. It was awesome. It's okay to be hyped about Bo Nix if you're a Broncos fan. He had the second highest EPA per play all preseason, so it's tough to do much better than that. Like, he did what he came to do. He won the starting job. However, I don't think preseason means anything. I remember Kenny Pickett looking amazing last preseason. What did that give the Steelers offense? False hope. And I do think that's slightly what we're seeing here. I still lean back on my evaluation of Bo Nix as a prospect. I saw him turn down open reads downfield far too frequently. Wasn't in love with his arm talent. He was not asked to make a lot of full field reads. He checked it down a lot underneath, and that was the design of the offense. When he was going through the whole field, I thought his footwork was pretty messy, and that's something I saw again this preseason. So where is he going to stack up amongst starters, like when he is the week 1 guy? Probably near 32. Probably near number 32. That's my projection. I just don't know how he's going to be explosive enough, especially with these wide receivers, right? Cortland Sutton, Josh Reynolds, Marvin Mims, Adam Troutman. I've seen a lot better, I just think this offense is going to be run, pass, short of the sticks, kind of boring, kind of disappointing. Now, what we saw in the preseason is that, well, yes, Bo Nix isn't the most aggressive. He's not the most he's not Dak Prescott, right? He's not going to be nailing the seam up in cover 3 with the Mike carrying it right before the safety gets there. Okay, those throws might not be there, but with Sean Payton, did those kinds of throws need to be there? Because he can just call Hank a bunch of times, and if you can hit those curl routes, you'll matriculate down the field and score the ball. And they've got a good running offense as well. So just because I personally, aesthetically, might not agree with what I'm seeing from the Broncos, the preseason reminded me that just because of that, it doesn't mean I should sell every single one of my stocks and say they'll be terrible. This brand of offense can and has worked under Sean Payton, and even last year, like what was Russell Wilson under strict instruction to do? Look at Cortland Sutton and then throw it to a running back. That's all he did, and the Broncos had the best offense that they had in a while. All right, just off of that, I think it'll be that again. Look at Cortland Sutton if he's not. Look at the running back or something. But that's not the worst thing in the world to be. Sean Payton could keep them out of the very basement, and then Bo Nix is certainly the right dude to play that style of ball. That's what he's been doing at Oregon under Lanning. So with that. And a running game that I think is pretty cool, like Javonte, Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime is a fun room with Miners and McGlinchey, of course, the two monster run blockers on the right side. Like this was, I think, the best tough running team last year, like on the goal line, churning out kind of those 1 or 2 extra yards at the end of runs. I thought they were amazing at that last year. Should have that again. If Bo Nix can be, Russell Wilson isn't a high bar. If he can be anywhere around there, like we saw the Broncos start to stack wins towards the end of last year and start to threaten a wild card appearance. Maybe it's a bit smoother all the way through here. The defense, probably not going to be great, right? You're hoping to avoid any 70-point performances this year, but they do have some names that have kind of showed out recently. Jaquan McMillan was kind of a revelation for them last year. Obviously, Pat Surtain is an extremely special player. I thought Cody Barton was a fine linebacker pickup. John Franklin Myers as well as at that defensive end spot. Zach Allen, DJ Jones, Nick Bonito had a great preseason. So did Jonah Ellis. Jonathan Cooper had a good amount of sacks last year. Again, not a ton of star players here, but they did stabilize last season. And I think that under year 2 of Vance Joseph, it's not going to be like it was when they first all got together at the beginning of last year and couldn't stop a nosebleed. I think it's going to be in the average range again, maybe slightly below average in both units, but there is a floor here that I'm comfortable with, a floor that the Tennessee Titans don't have, a floor that the Las Vegas Raiders don't have. So I've got them going 7-10. 7-10 for Denver. Nothing too crazy, nothing too high or low, just good 7 wins. Next up, we have got the Indianapolis Colts, and this is a team I am extremely high on. I'm a big Anthony Richardson believer. I am not buying into the slander this preseason that I've seen of him. I understand that he threw a pick 6 to Granson. There's a miscommunication there. It happens in the preseason. The almost pick he almost threw in the first game also happened because Granson wasn't right where he expected him to be, getting hung up 2 crossing routes over the middle of the field. He targets it. Tight end isn't there. All of a sudden, it hits the guy in the chest. It's preseason. I get it. Footwork definitely needs work with Anthony Richardson. Definitely. It's going to be a mixed bag in the straight drop back situations. Definitely. However, Shane Steichen can design plays with the best of them. I think that they are going to spam the RPOs again. And when he is asked to do those, Anthony Richardson's footwork looks pretty perfect. It's more when he drops back and the play starts to go on longer and longer, I feel like that the feet sort of start to leave him. But on those quick game stuff and that easy offense that Shane Steichen will dial up, I think that he can be clean and accurate. And obviously he's got the zip on the ball to hit some very kind of covered throws in that arena as well. I think that's going to work super well. Then you add in his rushing talent, and then you put Jonathan Taylor alongside of him. I mean, I talked about Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson earlier. This is the same caliber on the ground, maybe even more. Like Taylor might be better than Henry, and as a runner, like if he's healthy, like Richardson might not be behind anybody. So I would say it's just as potent, and this is almost guaranteed, I'd say, to be a top 5 rushing attack next year with a passing offense that should be able to generate easy offense in the quick game and the RPOs. And like I said, it'll be a mixed bag when they drop back, which means some bad plays, but also some really good plays from Anthony Richardson. He has shown us in a short amount of times that he has the ability to hit the rare ones. And when he was a starter last year in only 2 games, he was the most explosive quarterback in football because of how he could break off long runs and hit 4 verticals. That's another thing this team loves to do. Call 4 verts, clear out everybody underneath. He can either take off for a huge chunk play or he can use that arm to, hit some ridiculous throw downfield. So I think the explosiveness and consistency is going to be here. There's going to be some mistakes. There's going to be some times where it looks ugly, but overall, I think it's going to be a lot more good than bad. On defense, I am a fan because I think they can get pressure at a pretty high rate. DeForest Buckner had one of his better years last year. Latu, I think, is a special rookie. The best pass rusher from a moves perspective that I have ever evaluated, and it's not even close. I think that he is in the top tier of NFL players immediately day one when it comes to using his hands to get by offensive linemen. Like, I had to slow the film down to 0.1 speed to even understand what he was doing. He looked like Neo from the Matrix. On top of that, like, he doesn't have the craziest athleticism, I'd say, but he has plenty of bend. Like, he has good get off. It's not like Chop Robinson good, but it's good. He's got size that the other pass rushers in this draft didn't really have. I think he's got a 260-pound frame. Like, Dallas Turner wishes he had that. Chop Robinson wishes he had that, So, all combined, he is going to be extremely formidable to deal with this year off the edge. I think that I don't know if he's a lock to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, but I would certainly put my money on that. Also a fan of the Northwestern guy, Aditamiwa Adebaware, I think is how you pronounce it. You might remember him. He had a 4.440 at the combine as a defensive tackle. Ridiculous. Agility drills, jumped crazy high. One of the most athletic players to ever play football. And he jumped off the screen. He was unbelievable, I thought, at points this preseason. Like, there were reps that looked like Aaron Donald, like with his frame and with his just ferociousness and his athleticism. Like, it was against backups, and obviously he is not Aaron Donald. But, like, go watch the Cardinals game. There are times where he just, like, blows stuff up immediately. It helped, too, that it was against the Cardinals, right? How many times have we watched Aaron Donald, like, Kyler gets rid of the ball barely, and then Aaron Donald, like, who had just swiped the hands away from the guard and, like, closed the space in 1 second, just murders Kyler Murray. Like, that exact visual happened with happened with him. So that's really what the Aaron Donald comparison comes from. But it's probably reckless for me to even say the name Aaron Donald and that anybody looks like him. But look at the RAS score, man. Like, look at the numbers. That athleticism is there. The athleticism is there. The consistency will not be there, but he's still intriguing. Grover Stewart to stop the run, decent pair of linebackers, and Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed. Secondary, looking a little rough. Little rough. Now, the good news is the secondary doesn't have to learn a very diverse playbook. They can play fast because it's just cover 3 all day under Gus Bradley. That's all he calls. That's all he's ever called. It's not going to change. Like, maybe that level of consistency in the calls can make it so somewhat raw secondary can play a little bit better than maybe their talent level on paper, as opposed to asking them to handle this, like, crazy playbook. And, like, maybe at least this way they can limit the miscommunications. But still, it is a problem. But I do like the pass rush a lot. which makes me think this defense can remain average with an offense that should. Uh, I don't think it'll reach 2022 Eagles levels, but I think there'll be a resemblance. So I'm high on this. I think that they can push the Texans for the division overall. I've got them going 10-7. I think they can get to double digits. They're one of my dark horses this year. Talked about that with Nate Tice a while ago. So a lot of you probably saw that coming. But I love the Colts this year. I'm a big Anthony Richardson guy. I always have been. Last team to get around to is the Buffalo Bills. I always want to say they'll fall off. Last year, I kind of projected it. They'd miss the playoffs. Didn't end up happening. It looks like maybe for a second they were having troubles. They fell behind the Miami Dolphins. They fired their offensive staff. But then they kind of got rolling again and ended up winning the division in the last week of the season. And it's kind of got me thinking this year, like, yeah, I still have all those same concerns I did last year. In fact, maybe even now to a bigger extent. But I've got to reckon with the fact that Josh Allen is just QB2 of the league, right? And it just will generate a top 5 offense by himself. We've seen quarterbacks who are able to do this in the past. Like Aaron Rodgers has gone through a lot of different iterations of his skill position talent and always been successful. Peyton Manning has gone through a lot of iterations of his skill position players and still been successful. Lamar Jackson, like any good quarterback, the skill position talent will not remain the same throughout the course of their entire career, but because they're so good, it always works. I don't think Stephon Diggs made Josh Allen at all. Maybe back in 2020 he did a little bit. Like maybe Josh Allen wouldn't be what he is today without that happening, but he's definitely not that important anymore. In fact, the Bills were more efficient targeting their non-Stephon Diggs receivers last year. And I like these guys. I like Keon Coleman. I thought he was misused at FSU, and that's why his efficiency numbers were so bad. I thought Khalil Shakir was a sleeper pick when they took him 2 years ago. He hasn't gotten a real chance to make a huge impact in this offense, but every single time they've targeted him over the last 2 years, he's made a play, and he is on a per target basis one of, if not the best receivers in the entire league. Now, what will that mean with a bigger target share? It will mean the efficiency going down, certainly, but it does give you an indication that he's ready for a bigger workload. Dalton Kincaid, I'm excited about him. We've seen quarterbacks like Brady, right, succeed, and Patrick Mahomes on the Chiefs. They've succeeded with a tight end as that primary weapon. And it doesn't concern me that the Bills are built like that. And Kincaid, I thought, showed some promise last year that he could be a good number one weapon. And the auxiliary talents around him, James Cook, Shakir, Coleman, all have potential to be that as well. So I think that Josh Allen can definitely make this work, especially behind an offensive line that has developed. Spencer Brown used to be kind of a mess. Now he's pretty solid. Last year, they were helped out by being the healthiest that they've ever been. They really went through no turmoil at all, which helped them be so good. Hopefully this year it's the same deal. We don't really know how their depth is, but it's a good offensive line. It's tough to say anything other than that. They performed great last year. Maybe a little bit lucky, but nothing too crazy lucky. Like if Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins are healthy, like you're probably looking pretty good, and they are. The defensive side of the ball. I'm a little bit nervous that they lost so much of their secondary. Both their safeties are now gone. Poyer to Miami. Micah Hyde is a free agent. Maybe they could bring him back. I think they weren't quite in their primes last season, but they were still a good safety duo and helped them win a lot of games, especially that Dallas game. I thought that those two played incredibly well. Their front four, A.J. Epinesa, Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Greg Rousseau. It's lacking that elite high-end talent that like the Chiefs have with Chris Jones, and even like the Bengals have a dude who gets sacks all the time, and the Ravens have Matt Abike. I don't know if I would put any of these guys above the best pass rusher on the other AFC contenders, but it's still good. Ed Oliver, very disruptive. Greg Rousseau, disruptive. Epinesa kind of took a step last year. Daquan Jones was very good when he was healthy last year. It was a minor miracle last year, but even though Von Miller was a nothing, a big zero, they were still an above average pass rush. So at this point, maybe I should just start giving McDermott all the benefit of the doubt that I give Josh Allen for the offense, because it seems like no matter what happens, like last year Milano got hurt, they still kind of replaced him. You know, they weren't a bad defense after his injury, and they suffered a ton of injuries last year. And if it didn't fall apart last season, why would it fall apart this season? That being said, I can explain all this away. I can say that I'm not worried about the Bills. It is still probably the worst version of the Bills that we have seen. Until we know that Keon Coleman is good, until we know that Khalil Shakir is good, I think we have to say that. It's the worst version of the Bills that we've seen since Josh Allen was bad. So, and they haven't done anything, right? Like, well, they've made it to the playoffs. I don't want to fall too much into ring culture and say they haven't done anything, but, you know, they've kind of underwhelmed. You know, they haven't won a ring yet. They were kind of supposed to have by now, or at least won the AFC. Are they going to this year? I don't know. And it's a really tough division with the Jets looking good, I think. The Dolphins looking good, I think. The Patriots looking probably bad. They'll probably beat the Patriots twice. But the Patriots have had some success against Josh Allen in the past. I think they split that series last year. And they have Drake May now, which I think will help them eventually. We'll see if he starts. So as much as I think the Bills will be fine, I do think that I don't think this is their year or anything like that. I'll put them at 10-7, just like the Bengals. Maybe I'm too cowardly with all these 10-7 picks, but that's what I'll say. 10-7. I think they'll be fine again. Probably make the playoffs again. Probably not make the Super Bowl again. But so it goes. Anyway, that's enough yapping for me. It's been about an hour, so I am going to head out. Thank you all for listening. I will be back next Tuesday to finish up the record predictions. We'll get some graphics cooking, put them on social media. Everybody will get mad at them then, but you will be mad first. So if you like the podcast, if you like any of my content, you can, obviously follow this channel. Follow all of PFN's, Pro Football Network's stuff. You can find them on any social at PFN365, on Instagram, on Facebook, I think, although I'm not really tapped into Facebook, on TikTok, on Twitter. And then you can follow me. My personals at Theo NFL on Twitter and on TikTok. And I will see you later. And get ready for the beginning of the season.